basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to build further upon stuff that's been said today already. I would like to, at the end of this presentation, make you look at the circular economy as a design challenge. Because the biggest challenge of eco-design is not the product. Like we just said, it's the marketing. But the thing with marketing and business models is they have to be designed as well. Making a chair is hard in itself, but it is just a chair. If people don't know what you do, if people don't know why you do it, if people don't know why it costs that much, people won't buy it. And if people don't buy your stuff, you didn't make it good enough. Now, Peter Drucker once said correctly that in great times of turbulence, the danger is to keep looking at the turbulence itself. You have to start looking at the reasons why we got into this mess. And that is what we at Plan C try to do. Why Plan C? Because Plan A is business as usual, Plan B is doing less bad, and Plan C is changing what we're doing. Now, Plan A, business as usual, I think I don't have to convince you why that is not the best idea. Problem one, we're losing money. Planned obsolescence has been named before, but there's also just the very inefficient way we use stuff. These are numbers for the USA. I don't think it's much different in Belgium and France or the UK. When you have a car, 96% of the time it's parked. 0.8 time you're looking for a parking spot. 0.5 you're in a traffic jam. And about 2.6% you're actually driving the thing. That is not efficient. You use materials, you put it in that car, you can't use it anywhere else at the moment, it's still there, and you're not using it. And problem two, it's not durable. When my colleague became a father in 2010, he asked himself, when will stuff be depleted? At what age will my daughter be at that point? And it doesn't look that good. We all know about peak oil, we know about coal not being the most efficient and durable, sustainable energy source, but we also have stuff like antimony, we have lead, we have copper, we have gold. Those are stuff we have to start looking at if we look at electronics and electronic waste. And then there's the strategic problem with Europe that we don't own any of the resources. So we have to import pretty much everything, and the moment Southeast Asia or Central or South America or Africa start actually creating and using as much stuff as we do, the resources won't come this way that fast or that cheap anymore. So, off to Plan B, doing less bad. And that is, sadly, most of the times we're doing stuff about sustainability. It's here we're looking at. Stuff like recycling, selective pickup, energy recovery from waste. That's great. If you look, for example, at phones, if you take 1 ton of cell phones versus 1 ton of ore, and you start mining them, you get 50 to 150 kilograms of copper from 1 ton of cell phones versus 3.7 kilograms for a ton of ore. Same story for silver and gold. Mining from e-waste is extremely interesting, instead of just keep on digging holes. For example, Umicore in Belgium makes about 130 million euros a year doing this. But we only get about 1% of the cell phones back, so there's 99% of the e-waste floating around somewhere. And you don't solve something on a fundamental structural level, because the waste stream remains, and even more people are actually having more interest in the existence of these waste streams. Because if you right now stop the waste stream of e-waste, Umicore loses 130 million euros a year. And optimization is always limited. At a certain point, you just reach the peak of which you can optimize, and then it stops. So, off to the circular economy. I'm going to sketch it very shortly in a theoretical framework, because Martin has done a great job for me already there, so I can skip those slides. So we're in the take, make, waste, dispose system. And if you look at it from a very, very cheap point of view, it looks a bit like this. You mine for raw materials, you give them a certain functionality, then somewhere along the process they break down and they wear out, and they became extremely unfunctional. And you can't use them anymore, and they just lie there for the rest of the What we try to do in circular economy is we try to implement as much strategies as possible to maintain the level of functionality of products as long as possible. In a very short nutshell, this is what circular economy is about. This is what it looks like in a bit more complex way. But basically, it's all just strategies from trying to reuse your materials as much as possible. Like we just saw in the presentation, not just reusing, recycling, but also remanufacturing, redistributing, second-hand product service systems, but also biocycles, making sure that you can make waste food for other plants and stuff like that. So what we do, or what our job is, we like to call ourselves something in between publicity agency and a laboratory. My job is the lab part. I try to translate the theoretical framework of circular economy to a Belgian context. And on the other hand, we try to talk about it as much as possible so people know what it's about. So basically what we do is based on 3 pillars. We activate and challenge people. We try to make it happen. Then we connect both people and papers and studies. We try to make sure there's a big coherent story about what circular economy actually is. And we share our knowledge is your knowledge. Some of the stuff we do to make it happen. The design challenge is a design challenge we hosted to see what additive manufacturing and circular economy could have in common. How we could combine the forces of the next industrial revolution to become the next circular industrial revolution. Here to Stay is a project where we look at hospitality and hotel rooms. How can we make sure that instead of just buying beds and furniture, we can start leasing them as a hotel owner and actually increase the functionality of your room, reducing the cost of your room, and increasing material efficiency while using it. Maxivia, pretty much the same story, but for an extremely different sector. This is the maximum valorization of steel production waste. So in industry like steel production, there's a lot of waste. How can we revalue those waste streams in the same sector without disrupting the sector? Because the steel industry is pretty monopolistic. You don't want to be too disruptive in those kind of industries. But we also have master classes on circular entrepreneurship, where we try to teach SMEs how to work within circular economy, what the role of design is in this, and how you should market what you do. I don't see this too much, but this is a closed loop tool we launched for the fashion, where we actually try to give as much tools as possible for every single piece in the value chain. So this is design, production, retail, use, end of life, but also resources you're using. And in the middle, it's systems thinking, because we don't just need systems thinking, we need systems design. Fashion flows, same sector. We try to look at the fashion industry and say, okay, how can designers, but also retailers and users, how can we work together and create new systems, better systems on fashion? In connecting, we try to place our vision in one big website, which is a virtual city called Reberg. You can visit at reberg.world. But we try to write stories on what a circular economy could look like on a very tangible level, medieval European city. We act as an information hub, so people can just drop by and ask questions to us. And then we give lots of presentations, expert discussions on economic governance and circular economy, but also vision workshops. We're in a bigger European network of people working on circular economy. We have inspiration events on circular procurement, so if you want to buy on a circular level, because it's a very different way of procurement, what does it look like, but also share best practice of other people doing this already. Lectures, workshops, events, and blogs, where we try to write as much as possible. Most of it, sadly for you guys, is in Dutch, but part of it is also in English, so you can look for the English part. So in 2015, just some numbers. We had 26,000 unique visitors to our website. We have 2,200 Twitter followers, about 1,000 people on our LinkedIn group, about 1,500 likes on Facebook, 3,300 people getting our newsletter, But I think this is the most important one because it keeps growing in number every year. Last year we had 42 consultations at our network. So it's basically one SME every week that comes to us to ask about circular economy. And that's a big shift we're seeing because this is just Flanders, which is basically a big city in France. Which also led to our award at Davos last year. We were the winner of Circulars, which we are very proud of. Now, the part I wanted to come to is circular economy as a design challenge, because I think this is the most important thing as designers, as creative people, as people managing creative people. Design as just something that a design that just makes a product is no longer good enough, in my opinion. We should stop just making chairs. We should start looking at why we make the chair, how we make the chair, and how we market the chair, and what the business model is. I have basically 3 pillars I always make this about. There's one size fits all, there's design thinking and business modeling. One size fits all, we can be pretty short about that. One size fits all doesn't exist. We don't work on the circular future, we work on circular futures. Because there's not just one golden bullet that will solve everything. We will need a lot of different business models, a lot of different products, a lot of different people. Just as at the moment right now in the linear economy, we don't just have one retail model or just one business product. So on to design thinking. Why I think design thinking is crucial in circular economy instead of scientific method is Ellen MacArthur said we have to rethink the future. It's not just about rethinking the products. It's not just about rethinking the materials we use. It's about rethinking what we're going to do once we really want to step away from oil. What are we going to do about the energy question? How are we going to redesign the way we produce and consume? How are we going to reshape how we live, how we work, how our cities are run? How are we even going to imagine the jobs that we're going to have in this circular economy? There's a lot of unknown unknowns in this question. And the thing with the scientific method is not very good when you don't know what you're looking for. It's not the most efficient method if you don't know what you don't know. And that's where design comes in, because design method is actually built to define what you don't know. So that's why circular economy at this point still is a design challenge. That's why I think it's extremely interesting at this point. So designers love tools, so what tools should we use? If this is a design challenge, then what should we do? In my opinion, economies are mainly driven by organizations, and true sustainability only comes from a systemic point of view. So the tools we need for circular economy should, in my opinion, focus on holistic business approach. How can we make sure that business get what it's about and actually act on it? And that's where business modeling comes in. So if you want to reach that circular economy, if you want to maintain that functionality of those products, of those materials, Fixit has been named here as one of the examples who are actually looking at maintaining products and make sure they exist longer, they maintain their functionality longer. Same goes for a small SME in Belgium called NOF, Nearly Office Facilities. What they do is they used to just empty buildings and then store them and buy new furniture and place it in the building. And then they try to get rid of the waste. Right now what they do is they remanufacture the furniture they get from your office for another office, and they tailor-make offices. Interface uses fishing nets for their nylon. And if you look at that on the scheme here, you see they all have different ways, different strategies to make sure that materials get back in the loop and get a higher functionality and actually go away from the waste path they were on. But there's also people like Ricoh or Xerox leasing copiers rather than just selling you a copy machine. And at this point they can start tracking how many copies you made, when the ink cartridge is going to be empty, when they need service moment. Same goes for car sharing. Those are all ways to make sure that the efficient use of your materials are as optimized as possible. If you don't need the biggest copier in the world. Ricoh or Xerox will start changing it and place a new one that's better suited for your company. Now what we made, these slides aren't coming through perfectly, but this is the business model innovation grid we built together with Cambridge. It's basically a grid where we define 8 big strategies on how you could start designing for circular economy. There's 3 on technological level, 3 on social, and 2 on organizational. Technological, it's optimization, circularity, and substitution. Substitution is moving from non-renewables to renewable materials. Social goes from functionality, so everything that's product service systems, to stewardship, to slow consumption, and then organizational, it's co-creation and social entrepreneurship. The website that looks better, so you should go look there. Optimization is pretty much the plan B part. It's just make sure that if you use stuff, that you don't use too much of it. Make sure you optimize things. But also look at new technologies. For example, additive manufacturing has been named here. If you can build it with additive manufacturing, your waste is extremely reduced. If you don't look at the energy cost of it. Circularity. Make sure that you design stuff to keep in the same loop. How can you design your product in such a way that it comes back to your own company? So pretty much as Interface does with their tapis plan. So what they do is they make sure that once it's used out, they take it back, they remove the rubber, they can reuse it because it doesn't really wear out. They melt the nylon again, they make new yarn from it, and they remanufacture their products, and all the materials stay in the same loop. Replacing with renewables. There's a lot of work going on biomaterials, biomimicry, but also live coding, DNA hacking, stuff like that. There's a lot of bioeconomy coming at us at a very rapid pace. Functionality instead of ownership. A lot of products you don't need to have. You just want to use them. For example, a lot of people are perfectly okay with owning a small TV decoder for a TV signal and paying monthly fee for that, but not that many people are interested in renting a television, even though the moment you stop paying for your TV decoder, it's completely useless. But we don't buy. We want to keep buying televisions for some reason. But if you start designing for functionality rather than ownership, you can really rethink that model. Stewardship. Try to get the image of being a good company. For example, Patagonia did this brilliantly with the "Don't Buy This Jacket" or used wear campaign. And slow consumption. Some products actually gain more traffic by not wearing them. Then co-creation. This is a very complex matter, and you can't do it on your own. You need co-creation. You need to share your knowledge. You need to open up to other people. And social entrepreneurship. I'll come back on that a bit later. Basically, the old not-for-profit versus for-profit doesn't really exist anymore. So Patagonia is one of them cases in there. Materialize, a big additive manufacturing, a retailer, EcoVerg local, nearing office facilities. And just keep in mind, there's no such thing as a one-size-fits-all solution. You have to start combining different strategies to generate new models. For example, Patagonia uses slow fashion, but also consumer awareness, product service systems. Same with the Fairphone. They use product longevity, crowdsourcing, all kinds of different strategies to build a resistant business model. Two conclusions in that is focusing on just one business strategy is never a good idea in business. And the second one is it's extremely difficult to be sustainable on your own, so don't try that. Some key takeaways, just a second. Some key takeaways. So, the non-profit versus for-profit world doesn't exist anymore. It's a not-for-profit world right now. The companies that are really winning and didn't have that much, they didn't lose that much during 2008 to 2010, are the not-for-profits. The companies that understand that profit is the result of a business model, not the goal of an organization. An organization should create stuff, start delivering meaning, and if you keep doing that, if you keep delivering what you promised you would deliver, people will keep coming to your company. So Neville Brody once said beautifully that he was at college in the middle of the punk era, and it made him realize that the rules were irrelevant. The rules by which we run our companies right now are created by different people for different societies at different times to solve different problems. So you don't have to follow those rules. You always have to look at rules and see whether or not they make sense. If they don't make sense, just don't follow them. Now, this is an office of Google in the Netherlands, and nobody is really surprised when they step into Google that it looks like it is Google, because innovation is not a feature. Well, the same goes for sustainability. Sustainability is not a feature either. If sustainability is not at the core of what you do, it won't work. If you keep if you have to keep explaining people why your product costs so much, you're not doing a great job at adding sustainability to your company. Sustainability is a part of your DNA if you want to do it correctly. Now I want to end with 6 of my main design principles when I make stuff, be it business models or products or services. I think if you look at these 6, you can't really not think in terms of systems. First one, materials. Everything you use, make sure you have to use it. Or use the right materials at the right time, at the right amount, and use them using the right production method. Then nature. Biomimicry. Nature has 3.2 billion years of R&D in its genes. The chances are that whatever you're trying to solve, it has already been solved once by nature. Just look at nature and start copying. Another thing with nature is nature solves problems in a very complex way. There's no problem with complexity. Complexity is not your enemy, especially not in the economy. If you try to simplify complex stuff, it gets really hard. So keep complex complex. It's pretty easy most of the times to look at it. Then people. Martin said it also. Sustainability is about people. Good design is not just user-centered. Good design is people-centered. So look at the people who extract your materials, look at the people who manufacture for you, look at the people who do your retailing, look at the people at the end of the circle. Everyone involved with your product should become better by being involved with it. Legacy. Every product, whether you design for it or not, has a legacy. And the moment you start designing for that legacy, your products get way more interesting. What if your products became more valuable because you use them rather than less valuable? One of my favorite design examples ever is Brooks, which is a UK-based bike saddle manufacturer. And their saddles are very nice when you buy them, but after 20 years of riding it, it's completely fit to the way you ride your bike, and the leather is completely worked out, and it's fabulous. Knowledge. Basically, we said it already, but this is too difficult to just do on your own. I'm not saying you should open source everything, but you should consider open sourcing stuff. For example, Tesla did this, I think 2 or 3 years ago. They open sourced pretty much everything of their car except for the software and the battery. Now, why is it extremely clever? Because everybody knows Tesla, and everybody wants to build a car, builds it now on a Tesla platform. Same goes for Google. Google open source codes every time to test stuff out quickly. The moment you start sharing what you do, people come asking you questions that are actually interesting and relevant. And then the last one, it's always a shame that we keep repeating this to designers, but make stuff that's actually useful. Make sure that you actually solve a real need. Make sure that people who buy your stuff are actually better off buying your stuff. And always keep in mind that whatever it is you're trying to solve, the chances are you're making new problems. Just make sure the new problems aren't bigger than the old ones you were trying to solve.